Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and we're going to end this week's rant about Dungeons and Dragons with this question. Why is it that Dungeons and Dragons seems to be a button mashing combat emulator about simply fighting monsters in a long chain of events and having very little or no rules to do anything else, and yet it still draws us, it captures us. We use it as a comparison, especially in this iteration of the game, and of course here as we're talking about this on the channel and discussing it. And how does this deal with the past, which was pretty much similar to the present, but what was different about it and what things have changed to get us to this situation where we're basically fighting monsters on a green screen, and all of the things that are left in the game are pushing us to do that same thing in a simple chain of button mashing. So the question is, why are we just, all we're doing is just playing a combat emulator with a lot of pages that have very few rules to do anything else, and why is it still capturing our attention? So guys, put your feet up, grab some snacks, sit back and relax, or join us here live, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. But let's get past the intro and into this deep question. Hello again. Hey everyone, thank you very much for stopping by. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hey, Stochastic, I was just watching one of your videos the other day about your interpretation of Crown and Skull. Wow, my brain just yeah, easy. It started as a small war game. Now I'm going to preface this by both going back in time and giving a description of something known as a fruitful void. Thank you very much, Drew, for bringing this here. Drew is a consummate member of this channel, but I did want to incorporate something that is important in a tabletop role-playing space that sometimes we don't discuss, but is also important as well. Oh yeah, me too. For first look, I love game design, and oh yeah, no big deal. Yeah, same thing here. Yeah, it was I've got the first 2 volumes, and I like Runehammer's thought processes. I love out-of-the-box thought process from lots of different designers. Even, by the way, I like his game style, but even if I don't agree with the game style, I love new thoughts and new ways of thinking. So yeah, I'm a supporter of individuals that do that. So 2 things before we start arguing about how D&D sucks and it doesn't have rules for anything. Okay, so first, I'd like us to get on the same descriptive page. Now, one of these things is a little bit deep, so follow me with this here, okay? There's a concept known as the fruitful void in tabletop role-playing games. I'm going to read this out a bit just so that I don't misinterpret it, but I think we'll understand what a fruitful void is. A fruitful void is a part of a role-playing game that is not covered by the game's rules or procedural elements, but which the rules and system direct players towards. In role-playing game theory, the fruitful void is a concept that says a game is not only about the parts covered by game mechanics, but also about parts of play that are not covered by game mechanics and yet are still central to the story. If I can, I will explain this from the point of view of an interview by the designer, creator of Mothership. It's a horror sci-fi game. And in his game, and he was asked about this and answered it directly, but I can't find the quotes, by the way. Sorry, can't find the article. But he specifically created a fruitful void for Mothership because the game does not have stealth mechanics. And yet sci-fi horror is all about, like, there's a major portion of stealth needed in sci-fi horror. Everyone's always trying to shove themselves into like HVAC vents and ducking under tables and a whole 9 yards. And we see this in media and everything. And his point was he didn't want the stealth to be bypassed with a die roll. He wanted there to be a discussion at the table specifically about avoiding dying by some horrific experiment going bad, or alien virus monster, or a rogue AI or robot or something like that in his horror game. And I think we need to keep this in mind when we talk about games that don't have a rule for a thing, that it doesn't necessarily mean they forgot it or don't want you to do it. It may be that they want you to do the thing, they just don't want to have invasive rules. And I believe in this, I got this from the RPG Museum, and it says that the idea is design your game to pose a question, then don't design it to trample on the answers. That's a direct quote from an individual named Vincent Baker. Fruitful voids allow players to engage with their subjects, which may be themes, situations, etc., in their own way by using their own creativity and without being subject to the limits of game mechanics. Not all games have or need a fruitful void, and not every sort of gameplay that isn't covered by mechanical procedures is a fruitful void. Okay, so there is that idea that maybe maybe we have a game where we're not seeing it. Okay, so let me go backwards in time. Dungeons and Dragons. Let me put this back up here. Here we go. Dungeons and Dragons started out as literally a small-scale war game. In effect, it kept shrinking the war game down till you got down to the individual, and then it became like, oh well, if I'm only portraying, instead of 500 soldiers or 200 wizards or religious individuals or something like that, or scouts or whatever, and you get down to one, then talking in first person or third person, it turned into a role-playing game in that manner. Now, Dungeons and Dragons has never had robust, like, social mechanics. Although I will say that it did have quite a bit of procedural and intrinsic exploration mechanics. It had over its iteration till now, there were lots of like random tables and situational modifiers and rules and procedures for having retainers and henchmen and designing castles and whatnot. Yeah, chainmail. Yeah. Mateo says, I was writing a zine today, okay, and hadn't written in combat rules. I had the thought of just leaving it out altogether. However, just mentioning it in passing as a dangerous thing to avoid. But there's nothing wrong with that. So the idea of a fruitful void is that maybe you have very simple mechanics, and the idea is this is something either you want to pass over very quickly, or you want it to get out the way so that players that want to involve themselves with it can. Those that don't want to involve themselves with it can very easily navigate past it and move on. I'm wearing my Obsidian Star t-shirt, and Obsidian Star is not a combat emulator. There aren't intense rules for having combat. It's basically a die roll, and you get to describe what happens. So I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be more of an exploration and internal logic kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with having a game that either leaves the rules out or doesn't have it, but you have to expect people to like scratch their heads and go, well, what am I supposed to do? There is a part of that. The designer of Mothership clearly he clearly stated that he does not want to have a stealth mechanic in the game. But you can have very simple rules to adjudicate a thing. And it's like games that don't have social stats for players, but you may still want to have them socialize with NPCs or monsters or something like that. Sorry, dude, it's a one-off. I wasn't neither expecting nor even thinking anyone would even want something like this. I'm a visual individual, and seeing it in front of me gives me a spark of inspiration. So I'm with One-Eyed Heathen there. Since I wouldn't leave it out, you might provide some loose bare bones systems and tell the players choose what they like. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's even a game whose combat system is like is based on rock paper scissors, and like if you have a bonus in combat, you can. I think you have to do it 3 times, and then if you have a bonus in combat, you automatically get one. Oh, really? Yeah, I ordered it on Amazon. I designed it myself. I mean, I designed the logo, so it's my property. I designed it, and then I just got a T-shirt, black T-shirt, put the logo on the front of it, got it as big as possible, and then just put it on there. Yeah. So, throughout the history of Dungeons and Dragons, there has never really been a large, for example, social or exploration pillar, but they had a lot of rules to support, especially the exploration part of the game. So, for example, when it comes to social interactions, well, hopefully my dulcet tones will not aggravate the situation there, Drew. I did bring you up because I was talking about the fruitful void, and thank you very much for introducing me to the definition of said fruitful void. So in Dungeons and Dragons, for social interactions, we've had things like reaction tables and morale in many of the iterations up until recently. So when players turn the corner in a dungeon, or they were going overland travel and they would encounter other adversaries, there were reaction and or morale tables to describe what the interaction was. Were the goblinoids playing cards and camping out, or were they murderous or something? And so there were other interactions, and many dungeons had reaction tables where murderous killing was only one facet in a bell curve. Oh no. What are you saying? Were you saying like this is the channel to go to aggravate the migraines? Well, thank you. I think. Wait, no, that's not a good thing. I joke. But over time, especially with the exploration portion of Dungeons and Dragons, and when I say exploration, experience points for treasure was a motivator to not fight things. Reaction tables and morale was a way for players to create a situation for monsters to go away so that they could get the treasure without having to get into a deep, intense physical confrontation. It far better for the ogre to run away, knowing that with a couple of good die rolls, that ogre could totally TPK the party, given the right circumstances. And so even monsters' objectives have been removed from the game. So now we have basically monster fighting green screens. The green screen part of it kind of hits me in the feels a little bit, because if we think about it, most combats happen on a flat gray plane, like basically in front of a green screen. The environment, there are little to no rules for the environment having an effect in the game, even in combat, meaning like there are very few rules for having dynamic wind, cold, rain, lightning, rock slides, um, um, height variables from people being above or below, navigating tight spaces, underwater combat, and things like that. They got some rules, but they really don't encourage you to do it. It's basically not even to the point where we have big channels that have to make up their own rules for encouraging players to retreat from a situation that maybe they shouldn't have been put themselves in. That there's an expectation of monster balance, that every time players get into a physical combat, that it's supposed to be, when players say balance, what they mean is that they have a propensity to win. They don't really mean 50%, because 50% balance would mean that half the players would die with a singular monster only losing half of its hit points, because that would be balance, right? That would be a 50-50 loss gain. That's not what players want. They want like a 75-80% chance of success, to the point that the game is designed now so that there's such a great chance of success that players failing seems like there's something wrong with the system. Yeah, stochastic agency, as the granularity in the charts went away, so did some of those environmental effects. Exactly. And not only that, but the creative, for this is just my opinion, the OSR and why there's such a desire for people to go back to the OSR. I'm looking at you, Shadow Dark, and Crown and Skull, and other games of its similar ilk today. I would say that the fruitful void of those games was the creativity created by the players to solve a situation. There were there were magic items that had no rules for them. There were player options and character features that had no rules. You had to, there was a reason why players went into dungeons with chickens and marbles and feathers and dust and all these strange things. Always the 50 feet of rope, always a candle, always, what were they? You tell me how to pronounce it. Pitons, those metal spikes that you knock into gravel and stone so that you can climb. So many times we used to shove those things under doors, because back in the day doors would slam shut for no good reason. But it was about getting that treasure out of the dungeon, and even encumbrance has pretty much gone the way of the dodo bird. And encumbrance was important because if you were sitting on 10,000 gold pieces, it didn't mean you could get to keep it all. You had to figure out how to get it out the dungeon. And so the classic Tensor's floating disc, now just simply floating disc spell, was a utility spell to allow you to get those ill-gotten gains from killing those goblinoids and whatnot out the dungeon. One-Eyed Heathen says, I think the DM could add narrative challenges with weather and hand wave mechanics, like, say, heavy winds mean everyone's attack roll -1 for heavy rains, minus another one for heavy rains, etc. Now, personally, I've written game books. They're on Drive-Thru. I don't even promote them anymore. Drive-Thru RPG, and each book was related. They're called the cinematic environs, and they use 5th edition rules to add in, to layer the environment on top of what the players are doing. And then each environment is a book. So there's like the Arctic reaches and there's an aerial book just about flying in the clouds and having like castles and things like that. And there's no monsters in it, and there are no, anyway, whatever. Yep, portable hole and Havertz handy haversack, I think was the thing. Yeah. I mean, yeah, everybody wanted. What was the other one? The portable hole and the bag of holding. But that was the purpose of those things. It wasn't. Now, mind you, did people fill up their portable holes with like water and flammable oils and things like that, and dinosaurs and dumb stuff? I don't know. I mean, did they do that? Of course players did that. And there were no die rolls back then. It was come up with a creative solution to a problem. there were so many dungeons that got flooded and smoked out and things like that by players going, I'm not going down in a dungeon, but I sure will open up that aquifer and let the waters flood in. And I'd be looking at the dungeon like did the creators of this module realize the players might want to put some explosive rune against an aquifer and let the water flood down into the lower levels? And I'm like, well, shrug, okay, I guess, right? I mean, that was a thing. So today, do we think 5th edition is made up of a fruitful void? And I will give you my I guess explanation of whether this current iteration of Dungeons & Dragons has one or not. So I believe it does not. Even with the 2024 rules, they eliminated one of the things that was supposed to be a player foundation for role-playing in general. It was called the background. And your background had like personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, and it even had a feature in it that was like a role-playing feature. Like, hey, if you were an acolyte or a sage or something, a criminal or something, you might have a connection in the next local town to give you free passage or a safe haven or something like that. And to me, those features, like the background features, would be considered a fruitful void. Was there a real rule and mechanic for interacting with the world in a social way? No. But it says, hey guys, you might want to interact with this game world socially. We're not going to give you too many rules. We're going to give you a charisma stat and a few skills like intimidation or persuasion or deception to interact with various NPCs and even monsters. But we're not going to give you hard and fast rules on like MCDM's game has like interest. I think it's interest and attention, or interest and patience. And whenever you negotiate with an NPC, you have to gain their attention, their interest in what you're talking about, but they can cancel it very quickly if you don't keep their patience level high. And these are mechanical features and whatnot, right? Yeah, fifth edition certainly paved over some fruitful voids, but it can't cover everything. Exactly. And now I am with you there, Drew. Drew mentions that I think very few people actually used those elements from the backgrounds. That is another thing too. Like, do we blame the game for the lack of interest of the people playing it? I mentioned Vampire the Masquerade too often on this channel, and I loved Vampire the Masquerade, but it had I'll say a substantial element of it was about fighting the beast. This addiction you had as a vampire for blood and, walking around in the night and attacking innocents and whatnot. And it was supposed to challenge the players in terms of challenging your humanity against you surviving these dark gothic instances of being and how many players just completely ignored that and wanted to play Blade, right? I wear really great clothes and I'm an immortal, and I also jump from rooftops and I'm a badass because I burn off my blood. It just became like an afterthought for a lot of players. But is that the fault of the game? I wonder sometimes, do we blame games for having or not having a thing, but it's our fault for not playing the game as intended? I don't know. Stochastic Agency says 5th edition certainly paved over some fruitful voids, but it can't cover everything. And I do agree that some games maybe don't want to cover everything. I can see why many games have very limited, if zero, social interactions. But I want to say this, I should have brought the game out. There's Knave 2nd edition has been lauded as, I want to say it's one of the if you are a solo tabletop role player or you want inspiration, it's one of the it's an inspiration engine. It's got, I think someone measured 87 D100 tables, and I mean literally 100 options, but and each of those D100 tables has features in it that says, look to this other table that's yet another D100 table. And one feature in there, since we're going to talk about social interactions, and I'll get to back to exploration in a minute, that there are 100 different options for turning the corner and discovering what your adversary is doing. So what I mean by that is, not every monster, like in a video game, do you turn the corner and then it's instant initiative, roll, let's start attacking, green screen, I hit it about the head and shoulders, it tries to hit me, I hit it, it tries to hit me, I use the spell, it tries to attack me again. No. It had options like maybe it was praying or sleeping or eating or wounded or hiding or feeding its young, or creating a haven, like maybe making a nest or digging a hole, or playing games or reading a book, and some of it was it for intelligent monsters, sure, or some of it for animals, like marking its territory or chowing down on its current prey or something like that. Yeah, monster was pooping. Yeah. I don't know if that's what an option, but I bet it is, right? Yeah. And my thing is, why not? Right? Like, why wouldn't the monsters be doing another thing? And then, what about objectives? So, like, the Knave 2nd edition book had objectives. Maybe the monster doesn't really want to kill you. Maybe the monster's looking for something else. Oh, you're all right. He says, wow, sorry, butchered. You're okay. Yeah, Spook says, I think the Vampire Masquerade had issues of being able to ignore the real world. Oh, it moved on. Sorry. Ignore the real world, personal horrors of the world, like paying rent and medical bills. Yeah, having to eat a drug dealer for dinner seemed like a service to the town. That's true. You kind of like a dark hero, right? You could play it as a dark hero. And I guess my point is, there's nothing wrong with playing it that way. But is that the fault of the game, that we as the players play it that way? Or, were we playing it wrong and blaming the game? Or did the game just not have a rule for it, right? Yep, absolutely. Stochastic says the social interaction pillar faces some difficulty, as many people railed against roll, as in rolling the dice, versus role play, as in acting, improving, right? And now, first of all, we play a hobby where many of us have some pretty limited social skills. Let's be honest about that. Many of us have difficulty expressing ourselves in the real world, let alone either making funny voices or doing make-believe and improv. Not that everybody has to do it. You can speak in third person. I don't care about that part. But it is a bit of an awkward game for people who are awkward in their real life, right? So maybe we do need some stat, at least a minimum, like, well, my charisma's 17 in Dungeons & Dragons, and while I may have difficulty expressing myself, my character doesn't. So we can use that. Do we need intense rules for it? No. We have a charisma stat. We've got some bonuses. We roll a d20 and add a modifier. Or you want to go backwards in time. You roll equal to or under your stat and you're done. Yeah. I love it. And I think, but here's another thing that we tend not to do, especially with social interactions. We often roll the dice first and then describe the results later for combat, but we often don't roll the dice first and then describe the results for social interactions. Normally we just go, hey, my character says this, my character does that, my character blah blah blah, and then the game master, dungeon master, whatever, goes, adjudicates it and goes, oh yeah, you brandish your sword, great, you intimidate the NPC. Rather than rolling the dice, the player goes, oh, I failed, and then describes how they failed to intimidate the guard or whatever. I don't know. I love it. And while Drew has been describing this Heartbleed system, which I love, there are other games that don't have things like attributes and skills, and yet are fully developed role-playing games. I mean, Microscope is one that comes to mind, and then there's one that is that creates a language, and Dread is another one. Yeah, the terrible RPG where you rip a piece of paper is another one, although that one technically has skills or special features or something. Heathen says, I guess I was lucky because everyone in my Vampire the Masquerade group were all serious players who wanted to be newly made vampires, dealing with things like jobs, feeding, avoiding hunters, etc., and attempts to balance the vampire with the human nature. My group was exactly the same way. They were very much like, it felt good to be frustrated with being a badass vampire and having to balance things like paying bills, you know, and how your mortal life would start to erode away because you're a badass vampire. You don't really have too much time to deal with paying bills, right? And that was an interesting feature. You know, things like, why do you never walk around in the daylight? I never see you. You're always, up at night, and having to explain that away, or explaining like, why you don't age. Yeah. Examples are one of the most enormous fruitful voids. Yeah. Dialect, that's the game. Yeah, Dialect. I was like, damn it, that's the same name of the game. Sorry. When you're live, these things happen, and you forget about those games. But yeah, there are plenty of games that throw out all of that. As a matter of fact, talking about Crown and Skull doesn't have attributes. Crown and Skull is a skill-based game with an attrition system. So you basically have skills and stuff. Skills and gear, and that's your character, right? You add some numbers to those skills and you're done. And if you suffer damage, you suffer 3 points of damage, you mark off 3 things on your character sheet. It's pretty bare bones, despite the fact the game's got each book has over 300, nearly 400 pages or something. Yeah, there are games that have you take wounds to specific parts of the body and subtracts accordingly. That, if we can bring this to 5th edition, if you notice in 5th edition, after all this time, armor class and hit points are a fruitful void. It doesn't really describe what kind of damage you take. I mean, sure, we might put a word on it like piercing or fire or electrical or psychic damage, but does that really have an effect on the character? Not really. Armor class is both your speed, which is your dexterity, to dodge and parry, and also your toughness, which might be the toughness of your shield and armor. But is it really that descriptive? Not really. It leaves open a lot of interpretation, and so there is a fruitful void according to that. Now, if you play Mithras, which was the game I couldn't think of the other day, Mithras, which has its own SRD and OGL, if you want to play, it's a percentile system, and it does have a body armor and body hit point chart. So could your sword literally strike somebody about the head and shoulders, i.e. decapitating them with a lucky roll? Yes. Could you also stab them through the shoulder or the forearm and take out that body part and have them drop whatever it is they had in their hand? Yes. The brilliant creator behind Me, Myself, and Die, the YouTube channel, and his game is designed in that manner. And so, is that a void? No, he's filling that void with a mechanic. And so sometimes we rub up against the fruitful void of the game, and we get frustrated because we follow the rules, like we follow the rule path, and suddenly the yellow brick road ends, and we go, but the game doesn't tell me what to do after this. And I think today they've started to whittle away a lot of those rules in 5th edition, leaving many of us scrambling for the answer. And sometimes that answer rubs people the wrong way because we've created our own answer to that situation. I wish, and this is just my desire for 5th edition, I wish they were more upfront with the you need to come up with your own answer, right? There's some people really get pissed off at a game that goes, well, if you don't like the rules, make up your own, right? If you don't like the rules, get rid of it. If it's in the way. And some people say, well, that's bad game design. But is it? Maybe they're trying to create a fruitful void and go, this rules procedure is complicated. So if it's not for your people at your table, don't use it. Create a void that you fill with your own creativity. And I think that's where they're coming from. Much like how players from time immemorial have ignored, encumbrance rules and the procedural creation rules for hex crawling and the elaborate tables for creating a mansion or a fort or a religious institution and rolling for the NPC reactions and whatnot. A lot of that has been. Any grognard out there remember name level, which was usually between 8th and 11th level, depending on which character class you were back in the AD&D times. And by that level, you were supposed to retire. It basically, you weren't a fighter until you got to like 9th level. You weren't a cleric, a true cleric, till you got to like 10th or 11th level. You weren't really a wizard. You were just a magic user until you got to like 8th or 9th level or something. He's like, yes, I do. I remember. And, as a rogue, or actually back in the day was a thief, you were called like a cutthroat or a pickpocket or a bandit or something. And when you got to name level, there were rules to say you gathered followers toward you to create a thieves guild or something. And there were intricate rules, and you had to keep their morale up. You had to spend so much gold and be in their presence so many times instead of going adventuring to ensure that they remained loyal. And no one wanted to interact with those rules, so you got rid of it. It's the exact same reason for why encumbrance rules have shifted into quantum mechanics in many games. Blades in the Dark uses quantum gear. You basically walk around with light, medium, or heavy gear. As a matter of fact, in the new deep cuts, I think it's like $10 for the PDF. John Harper even included I think it's concealable and not visible, and conspicuous gear element to it, so that you can't say, hey, I've got light gear, and then you have a large cannon on your back and blades in the dark. But my point is quantum gear. What's the other gear function? Sometimes it's just called like supply or resources, or you've got 5 things in your pack, pull something out and it's instantly what it is. Many people just like Vampire the Masquerade, you just hand wave what you have. It's just like, of course you have a wallet or a cell phone or something. We don't really. Do you record that on your character sheet? Not really. Nameless Spook says, I would say my main source of frustration with a game or setting is when it has so much detail on one aspect and then 2 sentences for another. Yep. I get in the mindset for rules heavy, then have to wing it. I think that's the very thing that rubs people the wrong way, right? Because like reading a rule book, watching a television show, reading a novel, watching a movie, all those things, it's not us that is saying that there should have been a rule. We are interacting with what is given to us. And so the expectation is there's something at the end of it. A movie that has a long list of questions and doesn't give an answer at the end frustrates people because they're like, but you kept asking the question. Now, mind you, maybe the movie didn't ask the question in like up front, but some movies constantly ask a question. Maybe ask a question about human nature and love and relationships, or politics, or ethics or morality, and a lot of those kind of stories or whatever. This is non-role playing wise. Will ask that question, and at the very end, when it ends, sometimes the person that created it is like, I want you to think for yourself. And we're sitting back like, what? There's a brilliant movie called Hell or High Water. And it is brilliant because at the end of the movie, the movie involves criminals committing a crime, and you find out that you kind of feel for them, why they're committing a crime. And then there's a police officer who's trying to stop them, and you feel for the police officer because of the death and damage that happens. And at the very end, there's a standoff, and they don't answer. Sorry, spoiler alert for Hell or High Water. It's been out for a while. Is it getting close to 10 years now or something? And but it's brilliant, and it doesn't answer the question, but I think it's brilliant because it doesn't do it. Sometimes we read a role-playing game book, and it's like, oh, there's another rule for this. Oh, there's another rule for that. Oh, there's another rule for that. And then you get to a page, and you flip it, and you're like, 2 sentences? What? I gotta admit, Blades in the Dark kind of does that, but I think John Harper does an excellent job of going, I'm just letting you know, when we get into this other section, there's not too many rules for this thing. He does that. When I hear this, it sounds like a good movie. It is. It's actually a pretty brilliant movie. Sarcastic says, yes, the load system in Blades in the Dark eliminated the need to think about or carry everything. Retroactive handiness. Yep. Yeah. That brilliant game design to have retroactive equipment. Retroactivity is actually a retro perspective game where you can do a flashback to something you did before to have it affect the present. So yeah. Ooh, Drew brings up a really good, I'm going to steal that from you there, Drew. Says, I prefer rules light or rules depth and minimalist world building. And I believe today that many people are falling back into the OSR because of its minimalist nature, because it gives us space for our own fruitful void. If you take a look at Shadow Dark and other games that are of its similar ilk, you'll notice that despite the big page count, it's not a lot of information. It's I need to make something up. So it may suggest to you the purple-skinned goblins that live in the mountain range and collect trinkets or something. And that may be the only information, but our own creativity goes, oh, okay, I get it. And sometimes the very minimalistic words lead us to some great conclusions. For example, if I tell you that the purple-skinned goblins collect trinkets, I'm also, what I am inferring is that they're not brutal, they're not cannibalistic, they're not violent. What they want is an exchange of goods and or services to get trinkets. And maybe the players have useless, valueless trinkets, but they're valuable now. Now, am I inferring that from the description? Sure. Is there a rule for that? No. But in the OSR, when you see really good game design, they take, instead of 5 pages, they'll narrow it down to 2 lines of dialogue or 2 lines of description. And our creative mind, we human beings are very brilliant. We're almost designed to fill in the gaps of it's the idea of having a bucket with 5 really big rocks in it, and how every time you put in smaller rocks, it never goes above the top of the bucket, but it fills in the gaps. And our brains, we, with very minimal sights, sound, scent, fill in the gaps of a thing before we turn the corner and discover what the thing really is. When we hear a music note, when we see a certain article of clothing, we use a lot of contextual evidence in filling those gaps. And sometimes, like a really good horror movie, we fill in the danger of the thing more than the movie does. There is a scene in a Quentin Tarantino movie where an individual's ear is removed violently with a sharp blade. The movie never shows us that thing happening. It never shows us. As a matter of fact, what it does is it shows us a wall with some pretty nice music playing in the background, which is in antithesis to the event that's happening. And then it comes back to an individual bleeding and somebody else holding a little trophy of that person's body. It never shows us that thing, but our brain filled it in so much that when that movie was aired, people were, dare I say, ill, because it was like, it showed this gritty thing. No, it never showed it to you. Your mind just filled it in. Stochastic says, OSR does a fair job of prompting versus dictating. Hell yeah. Which does give you that fruitful void in more places than just the rules. And I think when we're reading those games, the prompts versus the dictating, that the expectation, like what was, let me put this back up here again. When Nameless Spook mentions that the main source of frustration is when they give so much detail, you're prompting us with the detail, right? Like, for example, 5th edition, since this is the one we're complaining about, right? Yeah, he sure is great in that scene too. Yeah, yeah, Michael Madsen is great in that scene in Reservoir Dogs. But when we read a game that has such detail, 5th edition, with combat, that as we turn pages and interact with the game, we are being led to perceive that there are other, more substantial rules for other things. And so we go, oh, page flip, combat, more character things, and it is so player heavy that when we get to the dungeon master adjudicating these things, it goes, well, make it up. And we're just like, can you give us rules for maybe how to do monsters, or create your own monsters, or create interesting situations instead of us fighting on green screens, right? And it's like, you know, I mean, it even took away the idea of a retreat or escape or getting rid of balance. It's like, no, it is telling you up front, this is all player focused. You just sit back and twiddle your thumbs. And that's why some of these really great YouTube, Twitch creators out there, and you know the names like Dungeon Craft and Comic Book Something and Bob World Builder and so many others out there have channels because they're basically having to fill the void. And some players are like, well, I read the book and there's 200 pages for the players and like 6 pages for me, the dungeon master. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, One Eye Heathen says, systems that are super rules heavy make me want to just give up. Rifts is a good example. I like the weird world, but damn, just rolling up a character is a beast. And if you think about it, like Rifts and the whole Palladium system doesn't really have it barely has a social pillar in it. Now, the creator of the game was like, well, they wanted to make a fruitful void for the social pillar, but it did turn into just button mashing, right? It did happen. Vampire, on the other hand, does have a fully engaged social system. People just didn't want to use it any longer. Yep, Tarantino also doesn't show the heist, it's just the aftermath. Absolutely, Mateo. I'm sorry about butchering you. Thank you very much for being here anyway, despite my lazy tongue. But yes, you are right. Tarantino never shows the heist. We actually never even, I think they showed us some of the characters running down the street. They never showed us the heist, and our brains filled that in. Our brains did fill that in. And like I said, there are some oh, let me show, hey, Are you purring? Can you purr into the microphone? Hey, girly girl. This is Brutus. Hey, girl. Yeah, she's been clawing at my feet this entire time, which is why I'm wearing fuzzy bubbas on my feet. I love my fuzzy bubbas. But yeah, this is he, and her sister is also here named Scarlett. I do live in the Ohio Valley, so definitely allusions to Ohio State University. But she's not going to stay still. She's not going to want to stay up here. Yeah, you already want to run at the camera. I know. All right, I'm going to let you down. Thank you, girly girl. Or boy, jeez. Yeah, kitty break. we interrupt this program. Holy crap! This is why I wear a blanket on me, because you sunk your claws. All right, yeah. I interrupt this program to give to you. Yeah. Oh man, he and her. It's the first he cat I've had in years. Boy, my camera is so fuzzy. Anyway, do I think? Because here's one of the situations that has happened. Okay, Dungeons and Dragons. We all know. Yeah, the internet is for cat videos. Yes. As a matter of fact, just before I went on air, I had a video for cats playing on the widescreen so that they could look at the squirrels and birds eat food and have them just be amazed. Thank you very much for sitting still. I appreciate it. So we are at an impasse because, and I think one of the frustrations. Oh no! Oh, she definitely. Both of them, she and he both climb me, and it hurts like hell. My calves and thighs are ripped to shreds, and yes, gotta cover myself with the blanket, with the old blankie, because yeah, it isn't the jump up, it's the newbie claws that come in, and they're like little needles. So yeah. All right, buddy. Yeah. I'm waiting for him to climb up on my shoulders. He's getting there. You getting there, buddy? Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. He's like, oh, jeez. You're all right. So, hard segue. So we are now in a position of 5th edition where, yeah, come on. We're now in a position in 5th edition where we are in a situation where a lot of the extraneous things have been carved away, and it has turned into a bit of a what people can have accused 4th edition of exactly. Thanks for the experience points there. Yeah, I got the toughness feat. This idea that many of the features are being carved away to allow the players to engage with, well, dare I say, the thing that they want to do, right? And if a game gives players what they want, is that so bad? Is that wrong? Now, some would argue that it's a gateway drug, right? That part of why I was doing this week of like D&D sucks and here's why videos is because I think a lot of the things that are our complaints are our gateway drug to other games that give us the experience that we want. I don't necessarily mean doing things better, but I do mean, maybe doing things differently. Maybe we want a game that has quantum gear, or it isn't so involved with mashing buttons and killing bad guys. Maybe we do want a game that's about treasure hunting or creative problem solving, or giving us real rewards for exploring the world, instead of just hurrying up and getting to, it's the I hate random encounters people who are just like, random encounters suck and they're stupid, and it's like, well, no, they were there for a reason, and it was put because random encounters put a tension timer on exploration. Well, if there's no exploration, then there's no need to have random tension timers, right? I was once playing Scion when a cat climbed on me, I suddenly started yelling "Ows!" So Cat Monster got into the game. That's awesome. That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Cat monsters and dice, dice goblins and things like that. Yeah, yeah. You guys like to go after the diceys. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me just rant off on these dumb things here. Oh, let me change the color of. Let's see if I can get the color close to my T-shirt. Oh, there we go. Yeah, much better. I calm the bright red down a little bit here, but it's an unusual activity and has some difficulty in directing people to what they want or can get from it. Yeah, it's unfortunate because Dungeons and Dragons, the IP, is the gateway for many people. Oh, that's cool there, Heathen. It was very difficult to get people into role-playing games in general. And so if this is going to be our gateway, what's the expectation, right? And that expectation is like, wait a minute, how can you have a game that has an expectation of a thing for newbies? I'm talking about new people. And then not fulfill any of those things and have to look somewhere else for it. It's a really weird thing. It's like I suppose it would be similar to introducing someone to new music, and then there's bits and pieces that have music that rub them the wrong way, and then you say, oh, well, here's these other people you should listen to that are better. And the person you just introduced is like, well, why didn't you just let me listen to the better people? Why did you make me have to why did you have to make me suffer through this to introduce me to this other thing? It's really weird, right? We all know that the corporate interest for Dungeons and Dragons is really pushing the envelope. Not pushing the envelope. I'm sorry. They're pushing the IP by not pushing the envelope, and it's unfortunate because 5th edition has really become a combat video game. It's Hanzo versus whatever, and then you just start to have a fight, and then you each take your life bars down and see who wins. Because while it does claim to be an exploration game and that you go into dungeons and explore places, but what's the reward for it? You may say, well, there's magic items. Well, usually the magic items are behind the ass of the monster, right? So it's not really that. Heathen says, I have an idea for that shirt. Instead of a red triangle, navy on black and light blue outlines around the stars that fade into the dark blue. I thought about other color combinations, and I think I have, I have the logo red, white, black in different iterations of what you're seeing here, like all black with red obsidian star. Anyway, but yeah, I've done that. But yeah. You said navy and black, with light blue and maybe white. I hadn't thought about the color combination. I also was trying to think of how to do it for inking. So like for printing a book, you can do it in black and white and maybe adding in some red or something like that. Oh, you're cool. Yeah, it's a little. My camera's making it a quite a bit fuzzy, but yeah, I have that. I think I even have a what's it called? An overlay. There we go. I have an obsidian star overlay as well. That I don't know why I don't put it up there, because I don't talk about obsidian star too much, which I should. I mean, if I'm going to bother creating a because it covers up your comments. That's why I stopped doing it. That's right. Let's turn you off. There we go. Yeah. I was just I was thinking of a splash of color, and I was thinking red. Red for blood, red for life, red for Mars, that kind of thing. ask your question right away. We are ending pretty soon, but ask away. M squared. Mike Marin, thank you very much, by the way, for stopping back in. The influence of CRPGs on D&D certainly did not disappear after 4th edition, and I agree that it feels very button mashing. And what I mean by the button mashing is, and Mike Marin's question for Red for Communism, ooh, but appropriate. Yeah, the red state. Although here in the United States, the red states is a thing as well. So I guess there's some overlap with that. Yeah, I would say that. I think there's some things like that. Yeah. Oh man, it's United States politics. Ooh. That's very true. Ooh, the evolutionary warning of red, with red being blood, and red being the universal color of warning and trauma and danger. Yep, sure is. I remember having I think it was humanities or something class like that, talked about how black, white, and red was early in most cultures. Excuse me. I'm planning to migrate my newbie players from D&D towards Forged in the Dark, Blades in the Dark type games, but I'm trying to work out some objectives for combat conflict beyond killing the other guy. And let's see, any tips for constructing encounters narratively so that they aren't just 2 hit point blocks fighting each other? He says, I mean, I believe you mean our RPG, comrade. Yes. Clicking the jackboots together. Okay, so let's focus on M Squared's thing, because I guarantee you he's already got his answers, but I think he's asking for everybody else, right? Asking for a friend. Okay, so as a beer and pretzels person, I will say this: if the players weren't involved, what would the adversaries be doing? And I know that sounds very simple, but what I mean by that is that before the players got involved, what would the objective have been anyway? Now, are there enemies that would try to kill the players for finding out that they're, I don't know, stealing the crown jewels, or kidnapping a princess? Let's do some classic ones, right? Bandits on the road robbing people. Do they really want to kill the player characters? And the answer is maybe, right? Like, my first interaction with this without rules came about when there were these 5 goblins that stole the treasure at the end of an adventure. So we were having an adventure, there were some goblins, and it was some big bad and whatnot. It wasn't me. One of our players was running it and said something like, because we ignored the goblins that were in the combat, like we just forgot about them. And he was like, and we, of course the idea was like, okay, enemy's dead, let's go find the treasure. And he's like, he just basically said, well, the goblins took it. And we were just like, what? That's not what's supposed to happen. And he was like, well, you ignored the goblins didn't fight, they're not just going to stick around, they stole everything and they left. And we were just like, and it brought to mind, like, wait a minute, why wouldn't adversaries do other things? Why wouldn't they parlay, pray, be, why wouldn't the adversary be in a state of, how to say this, a state of uncertainty long before the players got there? Meaning, like, let's go with the weakness part. Hungry, wounded, diseased, lost, confused, angry, frustrated, hopeless, right? Those are states of weakness that adversaries could be in. They could also be in a point of strength. Maybe they're waiting for reinforcements. They are trying to remain quiet. Their objective is to escape. Their objective is to get missives or specific information somewhere else. And I see you guys are filling the chat up with all kind of alternate objectives. And sometimes combat is like in a movie or television show, the physical combat actually is a storytelling element to get to the objective, right? John Wick murder killing his way through the underworld wasn't the point of the movie. His objective was to get revenge on the person that killed his dog, which was a representative of his life outside the system. He just so happened to go through these other things. And so, yeah, and that's a murder killing movie. But that really wasn't it. Yeah. One Eye Heathen says retrieval mission, rescue, theft, delivery, hiding a person or thing, training others before a confrontation. Yep. Drew says, oh my God, this series. Watch Arcane. Pretty much every fight scene has other stakes than just getting the other guy down. I would add a tension timer. So a tension timer might be, if these people keep fighting, what's the thing that's going to happen when the timer runs out? We often see this, so environmental reasons, right? Floods, fires, things falling into acid, being destroyed, a door that's about to close, a gate that's about to go down, flood waters rising, earthquakes, torrential rains coming in, smoke filling a place before the fires come, clouds of locusts, things like that. That's a physical thing. There may be social things as well, timers. Reinforcements may arrive. You or the other person needs to arrive at a particular time and date for a thing to happen, and the fight is wasting your time. You need the boat that you're fighting on needs to get to shore with storm-tossed waves, and it keeps getting worse. Why stop and fight when you need to get to the other side? The MacGuffin, kidnapped victims, the crown jewels, the ancient text is literally on a cart rolling away down the hill. Should you be fighting or should you be going after the cart, right? So adding some kind of tension timer is a great idea to go, every time you waste time, this other thing is happening. Maybe you need to stop what you're doing, or the bad guy needs to stop what they're doing to get this other thing. So Cobra Kai is also great. Lots of fights, but they are never about killing the opponent. Exactly. Bandits just rob things, not murder guards. Yep, are defending something, but for money. Animals are hungry. Yep, only monsters murder for murder's sake. Exactly. Yep. Animalistic bestial monsters don't always want to murder kill everybody. Maybe they're just hungry. Hey, we dropped food. Mission solved, right? Maybe have a spy mission fraught with odd challenges. Yep, like the ranger having to participate in a bardic completion, or the fighter having to speak to a noble. Yep, absolutely. How many times have we seen procedurals where our main character has to placate the feelings of their bosses when they really want to get back out on the street and beat ass on the bad guys, right? Blades in the Dark should already be emphasizing the avoiding of combat or other goals with the heat mechanics for violent actions. Blades in the Dark, as a matter of fact, Blades in the Dark has a stress mechanic. It doesn't have hit points, it has stress. And stress is a numeric value based on almost getting into trouble. You're not in trouble, you're almost getting into trouble. So you're always avoiding danger. You're always avoiding the fight. You're always avoiding the cops, the blue coats, right? You're always avoiding other gangs. And stress is a mechanic of luck. It's like you barely get out of the situation, and you're constantly barely ahead of your trouble. And as your stress mechanic shrinks, the results of your bad activity and your bad decisions catches up to you until you go to zero, in which case it does catch up to you, and your heat level, boom, you're arrested, you're trapped, you're knocked out, you're poisoned, you are tricked, that kind of thing. That all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Nameless Spook says, I've been having intelligent enemies surrender. Hell yeah. The guard isn't getting paid enough to die for whatever you're after. Exactly. PCs draw their swords. Guard goes, hell no, I ain't fighting you. Whatever. Yeah, apprehending smugglers carrying a dangerous thing or person. Win a contest to win some special prize. Arm wrestling, things like that. Yep. Stochastic agency brings up blue coat timers are low-hanging fruit for timers and blades in the dark. Yep. Blue coats, the cops. Guess what? You got a four tick timer, guys. Every time you're hanging around in the dark alleys doing your heist, tick, 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 tick. Cops come around, and the thing is, you can even red herring these things. Let me use blades in the dark as an example of a neo-Victorian region. Here we have a timer where the blue coats show up, the coppers, right? The cops could show up and literally have no idea what the players are doing. They just happen to show up in that alley, in the back place, smoking a couple of blunts, right? Doing a drug deal on their own. It has nothing to do with the players, but they just show up and they're like, oh, damn it, they're here now, and we don't have any clout with them to parlay with them. They're just going to arrest us and let our enemies get away, right? It's that kind of stuff, and it's really cool. Mufa says, for major encounters, I like to have a goal other than just defeat the bad guy. Yep, for example, stop the time machine or save the NPC, something for the players to focus on other than just attacks. Damn it, we're gonna do this next week too. Ethan says, great, not everyone is loyal. Yep, not forever anyway. Yep. Sometimes the evil king just sucks that much where frustration will outweigh fear. Yeah. Hey, lieutenants. Here's a good idea. What's the scene from John Wick when John Wick, the first John Wick movie, where he puts the gun up to the bodyguard's head, and the bodyguard is like, "Thank you, Mr. Wick." He's like, "Why don't you go home?" And he's like, "Thank you, Mr. Wick. Have a good evening." Right? That bouncer was like, "I'm not trying to fight this dude. I'm out." Yeah, Mike Marin says, all fantastic ideas and tools. Thank you very much, guys. Yep. Oh, yeah, they're all brilliant. Oh, have the fighter have to pretend to be a general in order to get to the royals. Yeah, pretend. You can't fight through all the bad guys, but you sure can put on an outfit and pretend it. Yeah, One Eye Heathen says, I love brainstorming. It's part of the fun of role-playing. Yep. Hell yeah. My last Simba Room session, my players had to find the corpse of a spirit that kept attacking them the entire time. Oh, those are great things, like placating evil spirits and finding out what the thing is that keeps them going. And a lot of times it's like you can't fight the ghosts, but what you can do is solve the situation, like putting their body to rest or fulfilling their goal or something, which yeah, I love those kind of things, which kind of bothers me to make. Ghosts aren't supposed to be slashed through with swords. You're supposed to placate them and go, hey, I need to be laid to rest with my beloved, and I wasn't able to be there. Or the evil entities slayed me and my family or something, and we've risen as angry spirits. And it's like the player's like, oh, you want us to beat ass on those people that harmed you. We can do that, ghosts, right? And now you've just avoided a ghostly attack, losing player levels, and now you have another objective. You know what I mean? A small town is terrorized by a low-level crime syndicate. Terrorizing a town might be a good low to mid-level mission. Hell yeah. Hello, Francis. Yeah. You weren't here if I weren't. Ooh, I like that. You know what we're going to do? We're going to brainstorm next week. And we will do a series of brainstorming where combat isn't the sole objective. Now, it doesn't mean we won't be beating ass. It will just mean that it's going to lean, we're going to build towards an end goal. And just anybody can go back to the videos or take chunks or pieces or steal or something like that. That's what we'll do. Yeah, so if you're doing that with Symbol Room, are you playing Vassin? Yeah. What Ethan says, ooh, I know what I'm doing next week. Taking notes, hopefully, maybe me too as well, from you guys, because you guys make me look far smarter than I think I am. So anyway, not to hold everybody, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much. Oh no, oh sorry about that migraines. I can't even imagine the pain. I can't even, Drew. So guys, next week, hopefully we will all be in better spirits. Everyone have a great weekend and whatnot. I hope this little dumb ranty thing was okay. I wanted to put some clickbaity titles out there just to help the channel out a little bit. Technically they weren't clickbaity because we actually did talk about the subject, but I get some people want the dopamine hit to be like, D&D is dumb, here's why, it's stupid. We're not like that over here. We like to have a open, honest, fruitful void discussions, and I thought I'd like to introduce those kind of things. So guys, have a great, having to get certain items to different places, the entire thing would be a time clock. We're going to make a list of this stuff. We're going to make a list of all these things. Yeah. It's like like the live, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thanks for stopping by there, dude. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everyone. Be cool, and thank you very much. And love to highlight everyone and everywhere you are at. So peace and tranquility. Great weekend. See you bright and early this time on the Eastern Ohio Valley. I'll see you guys later. Bye.